Hi there, it's Kevin with Gonro Games, here with my good old Buttons. Hello, Buttons, my friend. Would you like to be in the video? The other dogs run off when I get the camera. They hate to be in the video, they're camera shy. But my good old pal Buttons here. You pretty much like the show business, huh, bud? Gotta get you into acting. All right, so anyway, I want to have a little bit of a, I don't know, what do we call this, like a shower thoughts moment of reading a lot of the comments surrounding Final Fantasy and just the frenzy, as I mentioned in the other video, which is going on with Final Fantasy, and some of the comments especially that are focused on that Final Fantasy is going to sell no matter what because it's Final Fantasy. And I went through this with Pokemon recently when I kept talking about how I really wish that Pokemon would start focusing on the game again, because that's truly what sells the Pokemon, is that even though that the vast majority of people that buy Pokemon are collecting it, I used to give out the number that 95% of the people that bought Pokemon packs were collectors and 5% were actually players. I would actually say that it's probably more like 98% to 2 now. And I mean, that's just how, you know, crazy the collectible aspect of Pokemon has become. And of course, I'm not going to deny that a lot of people are going to come in with Final Fantasy with this sort of mentality. But I keep sifting through these comments of people like, oh, I don't even play the game, and I'm just going to buy these cards because it's Final Fantasy. And it's not Magic the reason why I'm buying it. And let's just basically call out that BS right now, because that is BS. The reason why Final Fantasy is selling right now is because it's Magic. Because there happens to be plenty of trading card games. There's a whole Final Fantasy trading card game that it's years old now. And it actually had the first few sets sold pretty good because, like people mentioned, Final Fantasy is a very, very popular IP. But it hasn't been aging that well. I'm actually curious of how much sales have happened or how much interest has been drummed up with the Final Fantasy TCG now that Magic is doing the Universes Beyond, and people then realize that Final Fantasy had a TCG all along. And it was like kind of the same argument I had against the Pokemon players, that people were like, well, utility doesn't matter, the game doesn't matter, the state of the game doesn't matter, people are always going to buy Pokemon TCG because it's Pokemon. You could literally sell anything that was Pokemon and people would buy it. And that couldn't be further from the truth. There have been so many Pokemon games and products, trading, not really trading card games, but trading cards, spin-offs of other Pokemon products, things like even the like plush toys and toys in general, or even like Funko Pops that have tried to brand and work off the Pokemon IP, and many of those have failed and haven't lived up to expectations. So I want to address that with Final Fantasy and tell people you are kidding yourself and lying that it doesn't matter if the Final Fantasy set sucks, that people are just going to buy it for the art, they're just going to collect it. And I'm here to say, no, it does matter. Utility matters immensely for Magic the Gathering. Lord of the Rings was actually a set that was highly sought after and popular because not only did it have the Lord of the Rings branding, but it was a very well-designed set with powerful cards in it. And in fact, the One Ring and Orcish Bowmasters, I would say, had more to do with the overall appetite for Lord of the Rings than the IP did. It was the combination that actually, the sums of the parts that actually made it the success that it was. So, I'm just here to call out that Final Fantasy has a TCG. And if that was the case, the IP was so strong, then people would be purchasing that Final Fantasy TCG for the art, for the nostalgia, and collecting that. So, I guess this is where I want to go with, even as I stay with Pokemon and some of this other stuff, with even Lorcana and all these things that are now so focused on the collectible aspect. I think that collectability always needs to have some inherent reason to want to be collected beyond like the cardboard and the art. There has to be, it's like why people like high performance cars or even like basketball shoes. That's the whole thing, like the Nikes that people collect. The reason why that those shoes become expensive is they're actually, you know, decent for what they do. Like that's the whole point to it. That's what drives up the initial like desire for those products. And so with Final Fantasy, I am actually hoping to see a set that's really well designed. And that's my whole fear with Final Fantasy is that, you know, Wizards I'm hoping they do give this attention that it deserves and not expect like Assassin's Creed kind of fell flat. And I know people didn't like the Beyond Burgers, is what I call it, the Beyond Boosters, because of the way that they were packaged with the is it a 6 card? How many are, there's not a lot of cards in that pack, and so it became incredibly redundant, and there are a million different art styles and things like that, and it just wasn't, like, that's not what the consumer wants. They've tried that with Aftermath, they've tried that with some other sets, and, you know, people don't want these shenanigans. They actually want regular booster box that you can actually play with and enjoy the experience. So, Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy is now approaching record sales in the pre-orders, at least as far as on my end. I have never seen so many people put in for pre-orders locally as well as on my Patreon, and it is just going to be a madhouse. But if Lord of the Rings is anything to anchor this on, it is going to be something that I think that Wizards of the Coast is going to be able to meet the demand. And if that weren't the case, then why are we still seeing Lord of the Rings set boosters and draft boosters and commander decks still readily available at distribution level? So, as I stated in my other video, please calm. I did a video over at my Rogue Market channel where we're seeing pre-order prices for the Cloud and the Sephiroth out of the starter decks for $50. Now, yes, we have some precedents for starter decks having some expensive cards in it. It happened with Lord of the Rings, it happened with Assassin's Creed, and it really happened with Bloomburrow, where I believe the card out of the starter deck was going for $25. The problem with those three is I think it was more of an educational problem or an informational problem, that people didn't realize that that was the only way to get the cards, and then it just snuck up on the market because we were all trained that starter decks were garbage, because they were. A lot of times starter decks were the worst of the worst. They would literally put bulk rares in these starter decks that you could get in packs, and there weren't like exclusive cards in the starter decks. We're going back to like the 2019, 2020 era when they had starter decks, and they're the most garbage of garbage products. That was when Wizards of the Coast really tried to exploit the casual. I mean, they put, like, many of those products in that time era were absolute trash, where they put trash they could never see. They didn't want them to see standard play. They wanted people to pick up these products and have to go in and then buy more expensive products to have decent cards. And they changed that tone with a lot of these starter decks that came out, especially like Bloomburrow, as I stated. They put exclusive cards that were actually highly sought after for their commander decks. And Cloud and Sephiroth, though, they actually both seem quite underwhelming compared to the rest of the sets that are, or the cards that have been spoiled. And I think the Wizards of the Coast is now trying to find like a happy medium of where, okay, these cards, they don't want them, of course, to be a 4 of in a standard deck. So, but they would still want them to be playable. And I believe you can still get them. Couldn't you get the Bloomburrow starter in collectors from Bloomburrow? So there was supply there. But starter decks in general do tend to be an evergreen product. So the Assassin's Creed starter decks were reprinted, the Lord of the Rings starter decks were reprinted, the Bloomburrow starter decks just got a massive reprinting. I think that Wizards of the Coast was like, oh, we didn't expect this card to be selling for $25 on the, the open market. We didn't expect that starter decks were going to be just purchased in mass to crack them to get this one card. Okay, let's just reprint them. And now that card is basically not worth anything. I know there's a Mockingbird as well in that Bloomburrow starter, and Mockingbird ended up being one of the better cards. In fact, it probably would be one of the more expensive rares out of Bloomburrow if it wasn't in the starter decks. But since it is in there, the value, of course, has to go down to the actual cost of the starter deck. So now looking at pre-order prices for Cloud and Sephiroth being $50 in a starter deck that you can get for $12. I know the MSRP is $20, but store's cost is $12 for starter kits. So now a store owner like me, or even people that are more savvy than I am, are just going to order a billion starter kits and just open them up for the Clouds and the Sephiroths and sell them until the market price comes down to where that is no longer profitable. That is kind of the whole point of the secondary market of what a lot of these mass box openers and mass crackers do with this sort of product. So everyone, calm down about Final Fantasy. The starter kits are going to be printed over and over and over. There is no way that Cloud and Sephiroth can ever hold any substantial value just based on the fact and the precedent that Wizards of the Coast has shown now with Assassin's Creed, with Lord of the Rings, with Bloomburrow starter kits, that they are just going to print as long as people are buying them. I keep having this rumor circulate that Wizards is doing one and dones, that they have changed their reprint policy, that they're not going to have these waves of, you know, products coming out. And I don't know where this is coming from, because I stated Assassin's Creed Starter Deck just barely got another, either, as I mentioned, restocking or a full-on reprinting. We don't know. I mean, we're splitting hairs here with the definitions of how Wizard of the Coast gets more inventory back into the distribution level. So, do not pre-order cards right now from Final Fantasy. You are absolutely insane if you are pre-ordering cards on places like TCG Player and eBay for these ridiculous prices. June is a long way away. I mean, there's the people that are posting these pre-order prices are. I know that most people are putting up like 1 or 2 because they know for a fact they're going to be able to get these, and especially the starter kits. You know, stores know they're going to get starter kits. They're not going to be rare products. They're not going to be limited like collector boosters are limited, and it's just at this point the worst use of your money to try to guarantee. I know that people are like, I want to make sure. Like these comments, are you sure, Kevin? You're sure that people are going to be able to get this sort of product? I just don't want to miss out. I don't want to miss out on being able to get these. I'm a huge Final Fantasy fan. I've collected these, everything Final Fantasy since the first Nintendo game came out. Cool. Yes, we all grew up with Final Fantasy. That's even more reason that Wizard of the Coast is going to handle this just like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings probably was the most printed set of all time. I really want to see, like, Wizard of the Coast is very secretive for those type of numbers. We do know they did release the quarterly earnings around Lord of the Rings, and nothing even comes close to that time period of how many or how much revenue that Wizard of the Coast made during that time. So we can just extrapolate those numbers and realize how much product from Lord of the Rings is still in existence. I mean, all those morons that bought into Lord of the Rings set boosters and draft boosters and held on to them, thinking that they were going to be something they would appreciate and value, when it's not Pokemon, where once the booster boxes, and Pokemon has done reprints too. I don't want to like hold up Pokemon as this big pillar of how things are done. But Wizard of the Coast definitely operates a more efficient level than something like Pokemon. When they see that there is actually demand for a product, they could give 2 craps about your speculative boxes that people have in closets or the secondary market. In fact, Wizard of the Coast has been the company that's given the middle finger to the secondary market. That's why they've done secret layers. That's why they've done reprint waves after reprint waves. That's why they've done master sets, is they are jealous of that secondary market and they want to eke out as much money as possible that they can from singles, the price of singles. So whenever a product even comes close to what we call arbitrage, where you can, product arbitrage, where you can actually open up a product and be guaranteed either expected value or guaranteed value of a product, Wizard of the Coast just reprints it. So, so they did with even the bundles. The bundles from Lord of the Rings got reprints when they realized that everyone wanted the One Ring, and the One Ring is going for $100. Okay, cool, we'll just reprint the bundles. So, calm down. Use caution with the only product that I think is worth like being aggressive on right now is the collector boosters, because the serialized cards are going to be crazy, and Wizard of the Coast has been smart about that, where they have, done these, at least in the past few sets they have had less collectors because they want to bring them back to being more collectible. And like, that's super understandable for Wizard of the Coast, because I think the writing was on the wall for a lot of these sets that did quite poorly, like Dominaria. They overprinted way too much. Remember, they slotted those legend cards into Dominaria to try to spur up some FOMO for people to buy the collector's boosters, and because of that, in my estimations, they printed probably like 2 or 3 times as much of Dominaria's collectors. New Capenna was the same thing. That just the sheer amount of collector boosters that they're like, okay, let's throw caution to the wind. These other sets have sold out for collectors. Let's up the print of them. And now we've seen them scale back on things like Foundations, and Innistrad Remastered was way scaled back on how many they actually printed out there. So Final Fantasy could have less collectors, but even in Lord of the Rings, as I mentioned in my other videos, collectors boosters at one point did come down close to distribution price. It was like $40 to $50 above distribution price is what they were going for on the secondary market for a while. It was right after the One Ring was cracked, and then people kind of lost their appetite. The supply of collector boosters seemed to never end. The holiday specialty, or the what they call the collector boosters 2.0 from Lord of the Rings, actually didn't sell well at all. Then they snuck up one day to like $600, and everyone was shocked, because it's like, man, these things were rotting at distribution level pricing for quite some time. And again, it's just like people have that reference point of like Lord of the Rings collectors, and some of the other products around that time period going up for a ton of money. But as I mentioned, going back to the things like the set boosters and the draft boosters, do not put it past Wizards of the Coast that they will just keep printing to meet the demand. And they're seeing the money signs, the dollar signs, just the greed monster coming with Wizards of the Coast, and they're going to keep an endless supply of Final Fantasy churning. They did it with Warhammer. They did it with still with Fallout and Doctor Who. That every time that Doctor Who and Fallout go up in price, oh, there's miraculously another wave of Commander decks. And Lord of the Rings has had another wave of Commander decks. Every time those decks get up to like $100, up here's another wave of Lord of the Rings. So that is something like I think it'd be better, like if you're looking to where to park money, if you're looking to, something that, if you don't want a fear of missing out, that'd be something I'd be targeting right now, is like Lord of the Rings over Final Fantasy. Because we're going to have 3 years of the printers going burr, burr, burr. So again, like I said, calm down. Collector boosters, I wouldn't fault you for being aggressive on, paying anywhere from, $400, $500, $600 for. That probably will be the market price for them, because this is just absolutely insanity right now. And now, of course, we have news from the government that there might be some rebate checks coming out in mails. So every time that happens, then TCG markets get absolutely, crushed with orders, because, people aren't the best with the money. When you receive a check basically in the mail, we know exactly how that happens in the past with where people's purchases end up going. So all of that couldn't have effect on especially Final Fantasy. We'll have to keep our eyes open for any announcements with that sort of thing. But as I stated, and I know I sound like a broken record now in this video, this hysteria has gone out of control. Do not pre-order cards right now. Do not. There's so much time from now until the release. There's going to be a full-on pre-release. It's going to be a standard set. It's going to have 2 types of bundles, pre-release kits. It's going to have collector's edition. There probably will be a holiday collector's edition that they'll do for December. It's Wizards of the Coast. The best indicator of the future is the past, and we know exactly how they've handled these sort of things in the past. So there will be that window, that will be the opportune time to buy Final Fantasy. You are not going to miss out. So there's my PSA for today. There's my kind of shower thoughts with it. And I know, kind of all over the place. I think I was going to focus more on this whole aspect of like, it's Final Fantasy. I'm just collecting it for Final Fantasy. No, we're all collecting it for it because it's Magic. And Magic continues to be at least the best mechanically sound game or interesting game in the TCG world. And that alone is going to be the difference between, it being successful in the Universes Beyond versus being like a very, very underwhelming performing TCG when Final Fantasy tried to actually make their own TCG. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, you can always check out my deals I got going on for Patreon. I'm going to try to post a bunch up here. I think the Final Fantasy is going to turn us into I hate calling it like a bull market or a bear market. It's obviously going to be a bull market. It's for Wizards of the Coast. They're going to make absolute record profits. They're probably going to smash Lord of the Rings sales for this Final Fantasy. But what happened last time is that put the rest of the Magic market in a lull. And so I'm expecting things probably the things that still exist at distribution level to be put on sale. So I'm thinking there still seems like Outlaw of Thunder Junction seems to have very, very high supply. Mergers of Karlov Manor bundles are still available. Pre-release kits are still available. I'm expecting distributors to start to blow out those type of things. And this era of Magic, I think, is actually pretty good. The cards seem to be very playable in Eternal formats like Commander, even a lot of them hitting Modern and Pioneer. Karlov Manor is no exception. There's a lot of powerhouses in that. And so there will be some really, really good opportune times to buy into those products that I think will age well. This age of Magic is definitely better than going back to Amonkhet era, Kaladesh era, Aether Revolt era. The cards are more powerful, the products are more enticing. So it'll be some interesting time. So, when one page turns another, what's the expression? When you turn to, I don't know. I'm so out of it right now. I'm so exhausted from doing orders and answering messages and dealing with customers. It's not just the way that Pokemon has just taken off, and even One Piece has taken off, and now Magic is just piled on. It's just non-stop answering questions on answering emails. We have so many phone calls from people asking about the availability of things. and we are just absolutely overwhelmed. So I appreciate all the people that have, you know, reached out to us and made our business successful. It's always been a pleasure to serve everyone in this area, as well as all the interaction we have online. And what time is it, Buttons? Buttons, is it time for a walkie walk? Huh? Is it time for a walkie walk? Not quite yet. Oh, he's getting attacked. See you later.